I graduated from Wharton, worked in Silicon Valley, sent my parents money every month, and still, my father looked me in the eye and said, "The best gift would be if you disappeared from this house." So I did. And 3 years later, I bought that house. And I gave them 30 days to leave. Hi, my name's Jason Walker. I'm 30 years old. But if you saw me, you'd probably guess 35. It's not the wrinkles or the hairline. I've just been through things that age you from the inside out. If you've ever felt like no matter what you do, it's never enough, stick with me. Because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about taking back control when your whole life has been written by someone else's pen. Comment your thoughts below if you've ever felt trapped by your own family's expectations. And subscribe because stories like mine happen more than you think. I grew up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's the kind of town where the grass is always cut short, and every mailbox looks like it belongs on a real estate brochure. On the outside, everything was perfect. Jewish and Asian families with honor roll bumper stickers, Sunday BBQs, neighbors comparing SAT scores like they were stock prices. But inside the houses, there were parents like mine. My mom, Nancy, was an accountant. Numbers calmed her. Control defined her. When I was 5, she sat next to me as I learned to write, watching every shaky stroke like a hawk. "Jason," she said, "your handwriting must be neat, beautiful. No smudges. One sloppy letter can ruin everything." I remember her voice. Not angry, just heavy. Like she believed perfection was the only way to survive. My dad, Ronald, was taller than life. A construction engineer, gruff, distant. When he walked in the door, the air changed. Homework, he'd ask before I could even take off my backpack. "Show me." Now, no hugs. No, how was school just commands and judgment. Where I lived, achievement wasn't celebrated, it was required. A neighbor's kid got into Princeton. It was broadcast like a football victory. Another girl landed an internship at Goldman Sachs as a sophomore. My mom brought it up every dinner for a week. And always, that one sentence, "Other people's kids can do it. Why can't you?" I was 8 years old the first time I felt like a disappointment. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I didn't shine bright enough to reflect well on them. It wasn't a home. It was a silent war zone. Every grade was a test of my worth. An A was acceptable. A B, that meant shame. My dad never hit me. He didn't need to. His silence was worse. "You think a B is okay?" he said once, barely looking at me. "You want to end up sweeping streets." And my mom, she'd say it softer, but it cut deeper. "I just want what's best for you. Jason, you'll regret it later if you don't try harder." I didn't know what regret meant, but I feared it. And that fear made me start hiding. I loved to draw. That was my secret. I'd sketch cars for hours, sleek lines, curves, wings that didn't exist in real life. But the moment my mom caught me, she'd slam math books down beside me. "Drawing won't make money. Be practical." And just like that, the page got buried under algebra. In 4th grade, I made the school basketball team. I thought just maybe they'd be proud. I ran home waving the announcement paper. My dad barely looked up. "Basketball. You think you're Michael Jordan now. Focus on school. Stop wasting time." I stood there, paper still in hand, feeling my heart crumple. After that, I stopped telling them what I liked, stopped sharing what made me happy. Still, I learned how to survive. I became the perfect son, straight A's, debate team, math club. I nodded while they bragged about me to neighbors. I smiled when inside I wanted to scream. I'm not your puppet. But I played the role, because not playing it meant more shame. One night, I overheard them in the kitchen. He's smart, my dad said. But he's not driven enough for Ivy League. My mom sighed. I just hope he doesn't let us down. They didn't know I was listening. But I was. And their words carved something into my chest I would carry for years. I finally left Cherry Hill at 18. I thought college would be freedom. But I didn't realize the cage wasn't just the house. It was in me, etched in by a lifetime of "you're not enough." I got into Wharton, one of the best business schools in the country, and I wasn't even allowed to feel proud. That's the pinnacle. Jason, my dad said, puffed with pride as if he had gotten in. Study there, and you'll have a future. My mom smiled genuinely. You've made us proud. That smile, it should have felt like sunlight. But to me, it felt like chains. Because I didn't even choose Wharton. I had dreamed of art school, product design, imagination. But in their world, dreaming was a luxury. And I wasn't allowed luxuries. The day I left for college, I stood outside our red brick house with my suitcase. My dad patted my shoulder, his version of affection. Don't let us down, Jason. I nodded. But inside, I already felt like I had. I looked up at the bedroom window where I used to draw secret car designs under the covers. I told myself, this is your chance, your escape. But I had no idea. That escape was just a mirage. And that 3 years later, I'd return not as their son, but as their landlord. Wharton wasn't the escape I thought it would be. The buildings were grand, the professors brilliant, my classmates ambitious. They strutted through campus like they already had CEOs printed on their business cards. And me? I sat in the back of lecture halls, typing notes that made my fingers ache but never touched my heart. Corporate finance, advanced statistics, data modeling. I understood all of it, but none of it moved me. I wasn't building a future. I was living someone else's blueprint. Every Sunday, I called home like clockwork. My dad always asked the same thing. You staying ahead of the curve? Remember, Wharton doesn't hand out success. You earn it. My mom would chime in. Don't forget to send us your schedule. We want to make sure you're using your time wisely. They didn't ask if I was sleeping, if I was eating, if I was happy, just if I was performing. Sophomore year, something inside me cracked. One evening, I signed up for an elective Product Design 101 at the university's art school. The studio was nothing like the business building. No blazers, no spreadsheets, just the smell of paint, the hum of 3D printers, and students hunched over sketches like mad scientists. The first time I picked up a pencil and sketched again, my hand shook. But something flickered in my chest. Something I hadn't felt since childhood. Joy. I started sneaking off to class once a week, telling my parents I had a late group project. Those 2 hours became my oxygen. For the first time in years, I breathed. But joy doesn't last long when you're living under a microscope. One afternoon, my mom called while I was walking out of the design studio. I was distracted and mentioned it without thinking. There was a pause. Then her voice turned sharp. Design class, Jason. Are you serious? We didn't send you to Wharton to play with crayons. That word. Crayons. Like every part of me that dared to create was childish and useless. I apologized, like I always did. And the next week, I dropped the class. I remember lying on my dorm bed that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me die. I graduated with honors, top 5% of my class. On graduation day, my parents flew in from Cherry Hill. My dad wore his best suit. My mom had her camera ready before I even zipped my gown. They posed with me in front of the Wharton gates, her arm stiffly around my shoulder, his hand on my back like I was a trophy. They bragged to strangers. Our son graduated from Wharton, full honors. And I smiled like I believed it meant something. But inside, that diploma didn't feel like mine. It felt like a forged signature. Their signature. After graduation, I landed a job in Silicon Valley data analyst at a massive tech firm. 6-figure salary. Full benefits. Office with glass walls. Everyone said I'd made it. Every morning, I put on my button-up shirt, pressed slacks, neatly combed hair. I looked the part, but I felt like I was living in someone else's skin. The work was dry, predictable. Running models, typing reports, meeting after meeting about optimizing revenue streams. I was a machine. Worse, I was a machine someone else had programmed. There was one small light in all that gray. Her name was Brooke. We met at a coffee shop in Palo Alto. She dropped her drink. I helped her pick it up. She laughed, thanked me, and offered to buy me a muffin in return. Brooke was everything I wasn't. Freelancer, writer, photographer. She didn't live by anyone's expectations. She made her own path, even if it was rocky. She'd ask me things like, "Jason, do you ever stop and ask yourself what you want?" I didn't know how to answer. But she didn't push. She just sat with me. And somehow, in that silence, I felt more understood than I ever had. I kept sending money home. At first, it felt like proof I was useful, successful. But the more I sent, the less it seemed to mean. Is that all my father once said? The Harris boy bought his parents a condo in Florida. I laughed it off. But inside, I whispered, how much is enough? Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. I walked into the office like usual, coffee in hand. But something felt off. People whispering, eyes avoiding mine. An email hit my inbox. Urgent 10 a.m. All hands meeting. Attendance mandatory. I knew. The HR director stood at the front of the room, reading from a script like she'd done it too many times. The company has been acquired. Workforce reductions will begin immediately. I sat still, jaw clenched, hands under the table. Fists balled so tight my knuckles ached. That afternoon, the email came. Thank you for your contributions. Your contract will terminate in 2 weeks. No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. I called Brooke that evening, tried to keep my voice calm. I lost my job. She was quiet. Then, it'll be okay. Jason, you'll figure it out. But I didn't want comfort. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop across the room, to ask the universe, what else do you want from me? I sat on the couch that night, still in work clothes, staring into the dark. And for the first time in my adult life, I had no plan. I used my savings, applied for jobs. Nothing stuck. The tech market was crashing. Layoffs everywhere. I lied to my parents, told them I was busy with a promotion, still sent them money. Less each month. Why so little, my father asked one night. I said, living's expensive here. He didn't press. But I could hear the disappointment in his breath. Then came the final mistake. A friend from Wharton, Tom, called me, said he had a startup. The next big thing. Put in $50K, and in 2 years, you'll 10x it? Come on, man. Don't get left behind. It was everything I had left. But I was desperate. Desperate to prove I wasn't worthless. I wired the money. 6 months later, the startup folded. Tom disappeared, and I was broke. I couldn't pay rent. My lease was up. The landlord wanted 3 months in advance. I had no choice. I packed a single suitcase and called my mom. "Can I come home for a little while?" There was a pause. Then her voice, flat. "You can come back, Jason, but don't expect us to support you forever." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, and the shame in my chest felt heavier than the suitcase in my hand. It was raining the day I came back to Cherry Hill. Not just a drizzle. A full, cold, body-soaking rain. The kind that made your suitcase heavier and your pride even harder to carry. I stood outside that red brick house, yes. The same one I'd left 4 years earlier, my shoes soaked. My fingers numb on the doorbell. My mom answered. Her eyes scanned me head to toe, wet hair, backpack slung low, face probably hollow, and then she stepped aside. "Come in," she said. Not warm, not cold, just default. The door closed behind me with a dry click, and I knew right away nothing had changed. The furniture still lined the walls at perfect angles. The scent of lemon cleaner still lingered in the air. Even the rug had that same stain I once tried to cover with a trophy. My dad was in the living room, watching cable news. He didn't even turn his head. I stood there dripping, holding failure in both hands, and no one said welcome home. They gave me my old room. It looked like a museum exhibit called The Child They Approved Of. Debate team ribbons, math league medals, my framed Wharton acceptance letter. Everything in there screamed, "You were once worthy." I sat on the twin bed, staring out the window. The old oak tree was still there, still standing. And I wondered, how did I end up back here? The first few days passed in uncomfortable silence. They didn't ask questions. They didn't offer help. They just observed, like I was a guest overstaying my welcome. I tried to stay invisible, applying to jobs, fixing my resume, doing freelance gigs that barely paid gas money. But every dinner, it was a slow, painful erosion of dignity. One night, over meatloaf and boiled carrots, my dad said, "So, what did you do today? Jason play video games? Sleep till noon?" I swallowed my bite. No. I applied for 6 jobs and finished 2 freelance reports. He smirked. Wow, big day for a Wharton graduate. My mom stayed quiet, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a napkin. But her silence was louder than his mockery. And then came the phone call. Brooke. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. I'd been ashamed. Afraid. I didn't want her to see me like this, a man who once walked through glass offices now living with his parents, scraping together freelance change. But she called anyway. "Jason, you're stronger than this. You'll get through it. I believe in you." Her voice cracked at the end, just slightly. And for a second, I believed her too. But belief fades fast when you sleep in the same bed where your dreams died. Time stretched. Weeks passed. Rejections piled up. Money ran out. I still sent my parents a portion of whatever I earned, $100 here. $75 there. It was all I had. And still, my father asked, "Why so little this month?" I said, "It's just tight right now." He replied, "Guess you should have tried harder in school." I nearly laughed. I went to Wharton, Dad. He looked me straight in the eye. "Then what the hell are you doing here?" Thanksgiving came cold that year. Sharp wind. frost on the porch railings. The smell of turkey and cinnamon filled the house, but it didn't warm anything. My parents had invited guests. Mr. Harris from next door, Aunt Susan, a new family from across the street. I didn't want to come down, but my mom called up. "Jason, it's Thanksgiving. Don't embarrass us. Come join." So I put on an old dress shirt, brushed my hair, and tried to fit myself back into the mold one last time. The dining room sparkled. Candlelight, silverware, wine glasses. The table looked wealthier than anyone sitting around it. I took the seat at the far end, quiet, out of the spotlight. The conversation started light. Mr. Harris talked about his son's new condo in Florida. Aunt Susan bragged about her granddaughter getting into Harvard. I cut into my mashed potatoes and tried not to let it reach me. But then, my father spoke. "Jason," just my name, but the whole table went quiet. "It's Thanksgiving. Got anything to share about your job, your future?" All eyes turned to me. My throat tightened. I placed my fork down. "I'm looking for work," I said, "and doing some freelance. Hoping to get settled soon." I thought it was a safe answer, respectful. But he laughed. "Looking for work 6 months and still looking." He turned to the guests like they were part of a joke, only he got. Wharton grad, cost us a fortune and now sitting in his room, mooching off us. The table fell dead silent. No one met my eyes. My mom stared at her plate. Mr. Harris coughed. Aunt Susan took a dramatic sip of wine. I felt the heat rise in my face, my hands clenched under the table. And then I remembered. A week earlier, I'd made something small, a photo album. I'd found old pictures in the closet, me at 5. Beach trips. My dad smiling once when I gave him a handmade car model. I printed them, decorated the cover with sketches. On the first page, I wrote, "Thank you for raising me. I promised to do better." It wasn't much, but it was all I had to give. Now, with the entire table watching, I reached under my chair, pulled out the wrapped album, and placed it in front of them. "I made this," I said quietly. "It's for you. I wanted to say thank you. And I'm trying." My mom looked at it. A flicker of emotion, maybe surprise, crossed her face. She opened it, flipped through a few pages. My father glanced at it once, then pushed it aside. "What is this, a scrapbook?" I said nothing. He looked me dead in the eye. "You know what the best gift would be, Jason." The room held its breath. "If you disappeared from this house." No one said a word. My mother bowed her head, napkin clenched in her fist. Mr. Harris shifted awkwardly. Aunt Susan suddenly found the gravy fascinating. And me? I sat there, paralyzed. Not from shock, no. I had expected this, deep down. But what I didn't expect was how free I suddenly felt. I stood, picked up my backpack from the hallway, slid my laptop inside. My mom said softly, "Jason," but I didn't stop. I opened the front door. Snow was falling. Cold, silent, clean. And I walked out of that red brick house without looking back. The snow soaked through my sneakers by the time I reached the bus stop. I had no plan, no money, no destination. Just a half-charged phone, $27 in my wallet, and one backpack packed in humiliation. I sat under the flickering shelter light, shivering. My breath made small clouds in the air. And that's when a strange thought crossed my mind, one I hadn't touched in years. Grandpa Albert, my dad's father, the one no one in my family ever talked about. Growing up, my parents always dismissed him. He's just a mechanic, my dad would say. Uneducated, lives in the middle of nowhere. What can you possibly learn from a man like that? But I remembered things. Vague, quiet memories. Greasy fingers handing me a wrench too big for my hand. A sunlit garage. The smell of oil and coffee. His voice soft. Calm, you don't have to know everything. Jason, just be curious. It was the first time someone didn't make me feel small for not knowing. That's where I needed to go. The next morning, I took a series of local buses from Cherry Hill to Burlington, Vermont. It took nearly 18 hours layovers, gas station food, aching legs, the works. I arrived at sunrise. Burlington was quiet, dressed in orange and red leaves, cold, but not cruel. Like it left space for you to exist. I asked around at a gas station. You know, a man named Albert Walker used to fix old pickups. The cashier pointed toward the outskirts. Dirt road past the bridge. Look for a crooked sign. You'll smell the garage before you see it. He wasn't wrong. I walked for another 40 minutes, feet blistering, until I saw it. A small wooden house with a sagging porch. A wide garage door left open, and a hand-painted sign, barely legible, Walker's Garage. I stood outside for a moment. My legs wouldn't move. This was the first time I'd shown up somewhere not because I was expected to, but because I wanted to. I knocked. The door creaked open, and there he was. White hair, weathered face, sweater with grease stains. He stared at me, confused. Can I help you? He asked, voice gruff but not unkind. I swallowed. Grandpa, it's me, Jason, Ronald's son. His eyes searched my face. Then, slowly, like something warm waking up. Jason, no kidding. Look at you, taller than your old man ever was. And then he hugged me. No judgment, no questions. Just a firm, grounding hug. Grandpa Albert didn't ask why I came. He made coffee, toasted some bread, pointed to the guest room upstairs. Sleep for now. We'll talk later. You look like life's been throwing punches. He wasn't wrong. That night, I lay in bed staring out the window at the dark field behind the house. No voices telling me I should have done more. No performance to give, just quiet. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the very beginning of something. The next morning, he handed me a wrench. You ever rebuild a carburetor? I blinked. No. Then today's a good day to learn. And just like that, I became his shadow. I didn't know a damn thing about cars, but I listened. Watched, asked questions. There was no grading, no measuring, just doing. Each afternoon, we sat on upside-down buckets sipping coffee. He'd tell stories about muscle cars, old girlfriends, life before YouTube taught you everything. Then one day, he asked me, "Are you running away or searching for something, Jason?" The question sat in my chest for hours. That night, I opened my laptop, dusted off a folder I hadn't touched since Wharton design sketches. Inside were old files, half-drawn car keychains, pen holders, even an idea for a desk lamp shaped like a piston. My hands trembled as I opened a blank page, and I drew. The next few weeks, I enrolled in a free online design course, learned CAD, watched tutorials on product development, basic e-commerce. My fingers remembered more than I thought. The hours melted away. For the first time, I wasn't designing for grades, or professors, or job applications. I was designing for me. Still, Money was tight. One afternoon, I told Grandpa my idea. I want to start a small online store. Just a few products, custom keychains, t-shirts, handmade stuff. He nodded. Sounds like a good start, but you'll need a little capital. He walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out an envelope. Inside $500, all in 20s, saved in quiet stacks. This is all I've got. It ain't much, but I believe in what you're building. I stared at the bills, unsure whether to cry or refuse. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. He cut in, because no one else ever told you you could. And just like that, Walker's Craft was born. I built a simple website, uploaded photos of my prototypes, car-shaped keychains, minimalist t-shirts, pencil holders carved from reclaimed wood. Brooke helped from a distance. She offered to edit product descriptions, suggested hashtags, helped me set up ads. The first few days, nothing. Then one order, from someone in Vermont. I screamed, ran into the garage, waving the printout. Grandpa laughed so hard, he nearly spilled his coffee. Told you someone would see it. I sent out the first package with care. No logo yet, no fancy packaging. But that one envelope felt heavier than every job offer I ever got, because it was mine. That night, as I wrapped another small order, I found myself staring at the mirror in the bathroom. The same face, same eyes. But something was different. I wasn't apologizing anymore. I wasn't shrinking. I was becoming, and for the first time in years, I opened my inbox not to send a resume, but to write something for myself. A letter to 18-year-old me. I didn't send it, just saved it in drafts. But I wrote, you don't have to earn love. You don't have to be perfect. Just keep going. One sketch, one screw, one order at a time. I didn't realize it then. But that letter, that quiet draft, would become the blueprint for everything that followed. Because while I was learning to rebuild keychains, I was also rebuilding myself. I was in the workshop sanding down a wooden lamp base when the email came in. Subject line, you should see this. It was from Hannah, a real estate agent I vaguely remembered from Cherry Hill, friend of a friend. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Her message was short. Your parents' house is on the market. Financial distress. Price well below value. Thought you should know. Attached were listing photos. The same red brick house. Still neat. Still sharp on the outside. But I noticed the windows were smudged. The front lawn wasn't as trimmed. The paint on the mailbox was chipped. Something had changed. Not just in the house. In them. I stared at the screen for a long time. Hands still dusty with wood shavings. A part of me wanted to delete it, say that's not my life anymore. But another part, the part that remembered every word my father spit at that Thanksgiving table, leaned in. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. That night, I sat by the fire with Grandpa and Brooke. She was curled into the couch, legs tucked under her, belly gently rounding under her sweater. She was 7 months pregnant, glowing, and tired. I hesitated, then said it. I think I'm going to buy my parents' house. Brooke blinked, eyebrows raised. That's a sentence I wasn't expecting tonight. I know. I exhaled, but not to live in it. I want to take it back. Not for them. For me. Grandpa didn't interrupt. He just watched me with quiet eyes. Brooke reached over, rested her hand on mine. If this is closure for you, I'm with you. But make sure it's for healing, not just hurting. I nodded. But inside, I wasn't sure which one it was yet. I contacted Hannah, told her I wanted to buy the house, but discreetly through my company. No names. No family drama. Just a clean transaction. Within a week, it was in motion. The asking price was lower than I expected. Apparently, my father had been laid off after a failed project. My mother had retired early due to health issues stacking up hospital bills faster than they could pay them. They were desperate. And I had the means. Walker's Craft had been profitable for over a year. Between savings, business credit, and 2 big custom orders lined up, I could pay cash. Cash. For the house I once fled barefoot in the snow. The day the deal closed, I didn't celebrate. I sat in the workshop, the deed in my hands. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like responsibility. But something inside me shifted. I remembered standing in that dining room 3 years ago, holding a handmade photo album being laughed at like I was nothing. And now I was the owner of that house. Thanksgiving was a week away. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I didn't even wear a suit. Just jeans, a dark sweater, boots caked with sawdust. I parked Grandpa's old pickup a block away, walked through the crisp November air, a small wooden box in hand. Inside the box, a copy of the purchase agreement, a 30-day notice to vacate, and nothing else. I knocked. It took a moment. Then the door opened. My mom stood there, older, thinner, her hair more gray than I remembered. Her eyes widened. "Jason," I gave her a soft smile. "Hi, Mom. Happy Thanksgiving." The house was quiet. The table already set. A simple meal, no wine, no roasted turkey, just leftovers, canned cranberry, and weary energy. My dad sat at the head of the table. His body looked smaller, shoulders hunched, but his pride still intact. He looked up, unimpressed. "So, you remember the way back, huh?" I said nothing, just sat down at the far end, placed the box in front of me. They asked a few polite questions. I gave short, non-committal answers. Then my father smirked. "So what are you doing now?" "Jason's still freeloading off some girl. Brooke. The baby. The business. The long nights packing orders. All of it ran through my mind. But I stayed calm. I'm doing fine. Built a company. Married Brooke. We're expecting a son in a few months." He scoffed. "Your company must be nice." I slid the box across the table. "Open it, Dad." He frowned, then popped the lid off. At first, he didn't register what he was looking at. He pulled out the papers, scanned the top line, his face drained of color. My mom leaned in, read over his shoulder. "Jason, what is this?" I looked them in the eye. "This house now belongs to me. Bought and closed through my company last week. You have 30 days to vacate." Silence. My father stood up so fast, the chair scraped loud against the floor. "You bastard. You dare kick me out of my own house." I didn't flinch. "It's not your house anymore." He slammed his fist on the table. "Ungrateful I raised you. Fed you, paid for that fancy degree. And you told me the best gift would be if I disappeared." I cut in. "So now, it's your turn." My mother started crying. She buried her face in her hands. "Jason, how could you do this to us?" I looked at her. No anger. Just tired clarity. Family doesn't humiliate each other at dinner tables. Family doesn't make you feel like a burden for existing. I stood, grabbed the empty box. "You always wanted me gone. You just never imagined I'd leave on my terms." Outside, the air was sharp. Snow hadn't started yet, but it would. I climbed into the pickup truck, hands gripping the wheel tight. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady. For the first time in my life, I wasn't apologizing. I wasn't hoping for approval. I was just done. I thought telling them would feel satisfying. Standing there in the doorway of my childhood home, the one they used to rule like a gated fortress of shame, I expected to feel power, justice. But what washed over me instead was an eerie quiet. My father, Gerald, didn't say a word. Just stood up from the recliner, face paling, jaw locked. My mother, on the other hand, did something worse than yelling. She smiled, a tight, bitter smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Jason," she said, voice sugary and acidic all at once. "You've always been dramatic." That crushed me more than if she had screamed. My entire body went cold, like I had stepped into a freezer wearing a t-shirt soaked in gasoline. I swallowed. "You have 30 days, I repeated. "Then I want you both out. I've already had the lawyer draft the notice." "You think this makes you righteous?" Gerald finally spoke, his voice gravelly. "You think this is justice?" I stepped back, watching his fingers twitch like he was trying to grab back control of a past long gone. "No. I think this is consequence." They didn't follow me out the door. They didn't ask why. And that silence, it rang louder than any curse they could have thrown at me. That night, back at my apartment, I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank email. Not to them, not yet. To myself. "Subject, you chose you. Body, dear Jason. If you're reading this a year from now, I hope you've stopped apologizing for surviving. I hope you've made peace with not needing their approval. And I hope you've learned to breathe without their voices echoing in your lungs." I didn't send it. I just let it sit in the drafts folder, like a bottle floating in time. The following days, word spread quickly. My cousin Brianna called me, half whispering like she was relaying a family death. "You actually did it?" she asked. "You bought the house?" "Yes." "Damn." Silence. Then, "I'm proud of you." That made me pause. No one in our family had ever said that to me without adding a but. "Thanks, Bree. I mean it." And also, the aunties are losing their minds. Of course they were. 3 days later, I got an invitation I never expected, an invite to speak on a panel at my old high school for Alumni Week. Topic: Redefining Success, Breaking Cycles in Modern America. Someone, clearly, didn't get the memo that I was the black sheep. I said yes, back on the school stage, in front of kids wearing uniforms I used to sweat through. I stood behind a podium and felt the weight of every time I was told I wasn't respectable enough. "My name is Jason Walker," I began, "and I'm not here to tell you how to be successful. I'm here to tell you how to be free." I told them about the glares I got when I chose art school over Ivy League, about how people praised my designs until they realized my skin didn't match the aesthetic they pictured. And then I paused, reached into my pocket, and held up something small. "This," I said, unfolding a worn piece of paper, "is the first design I ever drew." My mother tore it in half. The room went still. I taped it back together. I keep it to remind myself beauty doesn't need permission. That moment felt like planting a flag on a hill I once bled on. After the panel, a teacher I hadn't seen in years approached me. "Ms. Richards." She looked older, softer somehow. "You remember me?" "Of course," I said. "I remember you too. Not because of your grades. Because you used to sketch in your margins. I used to collect those drawings after class. I still have one. I blinked. Why? Because they made me feel something. And just like that, a new twist landed in my lap, someone who had quietly witnessed me when I thought I was invisible. A week later, a realtor knocked on the door of my parents' home. I watched from across the street. Gerald opened the door, and for a moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Not rage, not pride, just fatigue. His eyes met mine. He didn't wave. Neither did I. But we nodded. A truce, maybe. Maybe just acknowledgement that this chapter was closing. That night, I went back inside for the first time since I'd taken ownership and stood in my old bedroom. Same creaky floors, same chipped ceiling fan. But something was different. I looked in the dusty mirror, the one that once reflected a boy who never felt good enough. Now it showed a man who knew he didn't need to be. As I wiped off the glass, I caught sight of something taped in the corner, faded, but still there. A post-it. My handwriting. I must have left it years ago. You are not broken. You are becoming. I laughed under my breath. And just then my phone buzzed. A voicemail. From Nancy. I hesitated. Pressed play. Her voice came through. Softer than I remembered. You win, Jason. But don't forget, we taught you how to fight. I stared at the screen, and I said out loud to no one, no, you taught me how to survive. Fighting I learned on my own. Fade to black. The sound of glass cracking beneath my boots was the first thing I felt that morning. Not the sun. Not the warmth of starting over. Just the echo of a window that had been shattered intentionally. I didn't need to guess what it meant. The note on the wall said everything. This house was never yours. Red Sharpie, all caps. The kind of rage that didn't care if it was seen. For a second, I just stood there, heart thudding like a fist against drywall. I felt 14 again, powerless, invisible, trapped. Like that mirror I used to stare into didn't just reflect me, it judged me. But this time, I didn't run. I picked up the note, turned it over. Blank. No signature. But I didn't need one. That handwriting was my father's. I didn't call the cops. Not yet. I just sat on the living room floor right where the light used to pour in every Saturday morning when we were all pretending to be normal, and I let the truth settle in. They didn't see the house as a building. They saw it as a symbol, and I had dared to take it from them, not to own it, but to reclaim it. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Jason Walker, yes. This is Detective Griggs with the Dallas PD. You reported an incident earlier this week I hadn't, but someone had. We had a noise complaint called in from your block. Neighbors mentioned a loud argument and possible vandalism. Can you confirm? I looked at the broken window again. Yes, I said. I can confirm. Turns out it wasn't just the window. The basement door had been kicked in. Old photo albums tossed. Some soaked in water from a busted pipe. A box of my childhood drawings, the ones I had collected and sealed away like treasure, now smeared and ripped. The detective looked around and asked if I had enemies. I almost laughed. Just family. After they left. I sat on the porch with a mug of lukewarm coffee and the same spiral notebook I used in college. The one with the torn corner and the phrase still etched across the top page. Build what they said you'd never deserve. I started writing, but not another email to myself. This time it was a letter to them. Dear Gerald and Nancy, you taught me everything I needed to know about silence. how it can crush a child's spirit, how it can dress itself up as discipline. But you also taught me something else. How to listen to my own voice. You broke a window, but I see right through it now. You lost this house the moment you made it unsafe to live in. I didn't steal it. I salvaged it. No threats, no rage, just truth. I left the letter taped to the broken glass, exactly where the red message had been. The repair crew came 3 days later. I watched them patch the window, replace the hinges, repaint the edges. With every nail they drove in, I felt something inside me settle, like the house was exhaling. I replaced the old family portraits with prints I had made, photos from my travels, sketches turned into wall art, and one framed piece that stopped everyone who entered. A mirror, cracked, but sealed with gold along the lines. Kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken things with gold. Because what's broken can still be beautiful, and more importantly, seen. A few weeks later, I held an open house, not to sell, to invite old friends, students from the panel, even a few of the cousins who'd once distanced themselves one by one. They showed up. Brianna walked through the doorway, looked around, and whispered, "It feels different." It is. In the kitchen, someone noticed the framed email I had printed and hung near the back door. Subject: you chose you, body still blank. I'm leaving it that way. I said, some letters you don't finish, you just live. And then, just as the sun was dipping below the trees, someone unexpected arrived. Gerald. He didn't come to scream. He didn't come to stay. He stood at the gate, holding a small box. His face was unreadable, but his voice was raw. "These belonged to your grandfather. We thought he lost them. Turns out, Nancy kept them in the attic." I took the box, slowly. Inside a set of leather-bound journals, handwritten, yellowed, but intact. "He wrote about you." Gerald said a lot. Called you his hope. He turned to leave. "Wait," I said, "why bring them now?" He paused, didn't look back. "Because hope shouldn't be locked in an attic." Then he was gone. That night, I sat by the fireplace, flipping through pages filled with looping cursive and sketches of a world I came from but never understood. And there, halfway through the second journal, I found it. A sketch of this very house, labeled underneath in his scrawl for Jason. Someday. The twist didn't come from rage. It came from history. Maybe this house was always meant to be mine, not to own, but to heal in. The final scene, me, standing in front of a group of teens at a community youth center, holding up a blueprint. "This," I said, "is the plan for a mentorship space, art, therapy, design. A place for kids like me, kids who were told they were too much or not enough." The crowd applauded. Some cried. And I just stood there, hand on my chest, feeling something I had never fully allowed. Peace. Closing narration, voice gentle but firm. They broke the house, but I broke the cycle. And that is how you rebuild.